I liked Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I had a good time with it. But my biggest issue with the game is the little amount of content available after completing the main story, especially compared to the first game. It only took me 22 hours of playtime not just to beat the main game, but to earn the Platinum Trophy as well. It took me roughly the same amount of time to beat the campaign for God of War Ragnarok on the second hardest difficulty as it did to unlock every trophy in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And this was before the New Game Plus update dropped, so once I completed everything, I kinda just sat there in emptiness like, damn. What sucked even more is that it took them folks at Insomniac nearly 5 months just to add a New Game Plus update and the ability to change the color of your tendrils or whatever once you unlocked the anti-venom suit, which are features that should have been there since day one. I found the side missions to be a lot more lackluster compared to the first game, though that may or may not be due to my own high expectations. To say I was excited or looking forward to this game is an understatement. That introduction scene with Peter and Miles fighting Sandman already had me hooked. That sequence was peak.
This is the greatest game of all time.
The only few side missions off the top of my head that are actually noteworthy are The Flame, the mission where you first fight alongside Yuri Watanabe, now known as Wraith, before facing off against her. Then there's the 2 emotional side missions with Howard and that one with the grandpa.
You ever been in love, Spider-Man?
Yeah, I have.
It's beautiful. Nothing more beautiful. Can I tell you something, Spider-Man? I know I'm fading. It's scary as hell. Thought I'd be ready, but nothing gets you ready. Nothing. When I'm here, it's like she is too. Oh my God!
The first Spider-Man game had a multitude of different factions to face off against, whether it would be Sable International, Martin Lee's Demons, Kingpin's Men, Escaped Riker's Prisoners. You had at least a couple of side missions with boss fights like the one against Tombstone or the encounters with Taskmaster. I was hoping for something similar or even more in Spider-Man 2, but sadly we didn't get that. A lot of the side missions just don't hold that much weight, nor are they memorable a lot of the time. The Brooklyn Visions Academy side missions where you play as Miles gotta be some of my least favorite in the entire game. There was an entire side mission dedicated to playing as Haley, and since she's deaf, the audio is muted. Then you're forced to use your PS5 DualSense controller to tilt it up and down just to make Haley do some graffiti or whatever. I was fine with it for like 20 seconds, then I realized this was the whole mission and got over it incredibly fast. Or that one mission where you have to help a student ask out his prom date. Like, bro, who cares?
My God, bro, nobody cares. I don't care. Bro, you think somebody cares?
Then on Peter's side, it was just a bunch of environmental science nonsense. Obviously, there were some standard fun side activities to do, like defeating waves of hunter hideouts throughout the city and typical crimes here and there, but I feel as if they could have done more. I get them wanting to hone in on the more friendly neighborhood Spider-Man aspect with Miles' side missions, wanting to help out with his community and all, which is something I actually really liked in the Miles Morales game when they introduced the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man app. The implementation of Venom in the main story was underwhelming at points because he's not even in the main game for that long. Harry doesn't bond with the symbiote up until near the 3rd act. Apparently, Spider-Man 2 only utilized 10% of Tony Todd's voice lines as Venom. From what I understand, there were certain sections of the game that weren't going to hit a certain quality standard in a timely manner, which prompted Sony to have Insomniac Games cut out certain parts from the main game.
Like, I think back, I can't believe I'm telling the story. I remember when there was one part in the project where we realized that the back half of the game was, we weren't going to make it. Like, we weren't going to hit the quality bar. And, we had a very, it wasn't, I'll say heated, but it wasn't heated like we were arguing. Like, I was like frustrated that we weren't going to get everything done. And I remember it was our Sony producers. It was Mark, Ara, Grady, Joe kind of saying, guys, we're not there every single day, but we see it. And Jeanette has confirmed it. Like, we're not going to get all the way there. And I had a really, I will say, an emotional reaction to that talk. And then I stepped back for like 5 minutes. And I remember as people were talking on the Zoom call, I was just scribbling down how we could basically, if we cut these things, how we connect it all back. I was just made it objective. I'm like, does any of this stuff impact the pillars of the game? No. Can we reconnect these pieces with minimal rework or, because you don't want to make a scope decision that creates more scope, right? Because that can happen times too.
Things like that would explain why 90% of Venom's dialogue was cut and why certain sections with Venom toward the end felt rushed and not fully fleshed out. With the lack of content to do after the main story, pretty much everyone was expecting an announcement of DLC content at some point. I mean, one of the side missions teased the Chemelon being back in town. Or how about the end of the Flame side mission setting up Cletus Cassidy and the freaking Carnage symbiote?
That's what all this was for. And when the crimson hour rolls over this earth, it shall bring truth, judgment, and carnage.
Those are some heavy loose ends to tie up. Hopefully some DLC would help in fleshing out some of those storylines.
You gotta be fucking lying.
What's wrong, dude?
Well, hell no, God, hell no.
They waited nearly an entire year just to confirm they had no plans in adding any DLC content. What the hell? I had a strong feeling there wasn't going to be any DLC content once they announced the PC port coming on January 30th, but Insomniac themselves stating there's no additional content just solidified that, which is a gargantuan fumble in my book and a prime example of some of the missed potential this game had. Only reason why I wanted a DLC story pack so badly was because of the lack of content or things to do after you beat the main game. Many of the side missions were mid and had nothing to offer, so new story content could have had the opportunity to bring in new boss fights and side missions like in the first game with the City That Never Sleeps DLC. One would be in the right to assume there'd be DLC considering they planted the seeds for Carnage and the Chemelon, but I guess they're saving those two for future games. Y'all may or may not remember that nearly a year ago, a group of hackers breached Insomniac Games and leaked a massive amount of personal data to the public, including employee information, future projects, cut content, the whole 9 yards. Marvel's Wolverine was one of the biggest showcases of the hack, where literally everything about the game leaked to the internet. I'm talking concept art, the entire voice cast, all of the story and plot details, character designs, 3D models, gameplay. Hell, there was an entire playable build of the game that people were downloading. It was crazy. Included in those leaks was information about cut content from Marvel Spider-Man 2 and canceled games such as the multiplayer Spider-Verse game that never came into fruition. Apparently Spider-Man 2 had a bunch more symbiote boss fights similar to the one where MJ turned into Scream. Some of the other known symbiotes would have been Phage, Lasher, Agony, and Riot. There are also leaks on DLC with a Beetle story pack, one centered on Carnage, and even a Spider-Verse oriented DLC. It seems as if Insomniac is saving a lot of that stuff either for Marvel Spider-Man 3 or for the Venom game that they're working on. The data leak revealed that a spin-off Venom game is in development, expected to be on the same scale as Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. It'll be a short game that isn't full priced and will focus on Carnage and the other symbiotes. Now, whether the symbiote will bond to Harry Osborn again or someone else, we have no idea. It's not all that surprising they would give Venom his own video game, considering the developers took the time to make the basic mechanics for the Venom character in Spider-Man 2. It'd be kind of odd if they did nothing with that. Even if they plan to integrate some of the setup storylines into a supposed spin-off game before Spider-Man 3, I still think DLC content for Spider-Man 2 could have helped them flesh out what they have in store for the future. Not only did they set up Carnage and the Chemelon, but they also set up Cindy Moon at the very end of the game, hinting at 3 main playable characters for the third game. To be honest, I'm not really a fan of them introducing Cindy Moon as another playable spider-like character. That's just more screen time you'd have to divide up between characters. I have nothing against Cindy Moon or anything, I just feel like sticking with Peter and Miles should have been their primary focus, because now you have to properly execute stories with Carnage and the other symbiotes, the Chemelon, Doc Ock teaming up with Norman Osborn, who will no doubt become the Green Goblin, and Cindy Moon getting her powers. Feels like that's a lot to cram into 1 or 2 games, but it's pretty early to say what will actually happen, so we just have to wait and see. This is purely speculation and not based on anything concrete or officially stated, but I think Insomniac may have planned to release DLC for Spider-Man 2 before the hack exposed nearly everything they were working on. I imagine this had massive repercussions on their plans for that game, and even for projects like Marvel's Wolverine, which probably enticed them further to save some of that content for future games. Hopefully, with their next few installments in development, Insomniac will be given the time needed to deliver a product that meets their standards without being rushed by Sony or pressured to meet crunch deadlines that result in massive cut content. Like I stated earlier, I still am fond of Spider-Man 2, I just think it had some missed potential and needed more time to bake in the oven. I will most definitely be playing it again when the PC version drops early next year. You already know the mods for that game are gonna go stupid. First mandatory mod gotta be CJ from GTA as a playable character. A mod I need to see added day one is a mod that prevents Miles Morales from wearing this atrocious, goofy product placement having ass suit near the end of the game. Like, why does he even switch his suit to begin with? It serves no narrative purpose. No DLC is hella disappointing, but on the bright side, it allows them to pour more time and effort into the games they got coming out in the horizon. Been a minute since we've heard any concrete information about Wolverine, but from the unpolished gameplay that was leaked, I've heard the game looks pretty solid. Here's hoping it turns out to be another banger.